With the Macedonian swineherd, Confucius with the headhunting savage of Assam. Now, what he meant by that was that Plato had his Greek, and Greek is a language that is just festooned with morphemes crammed into a word. It has many, many, many lists of conjugational endings and the nouns decline, etc., etc. But then, on the other hand, there is Macedonia. And Macedonia is a Balkan country where there are many people who herd swine. And those who do that, living in the hills, doing that, are not what we would call cosmopolitan people, but Macedonian is as massively complex in terms of bound morphology as Greek is. Macedonian is part of a kind of a group of closely related Slavic languages. Bulgarian, Macedonian, and Serbo-Croatian kind of slide into each other. Once I was at a party, there was a Bulgarian on one side of me and a Bulgarian on the other side of me. And I said, "What's Macedonian?" And they both said in unison, "It's a dialect of Bulgarian." So apparently Macedonian is very close to Bulgarian. And then, on the other hand, Confucius and the headhunting savage of Assam, apologies for the terminology savage, but this was a very long time ago. But as far as somebody who is living in Assam and is not in a tall building and in therapy and all the things that are so wonderful about our first world lives, the fact is that both the language of that person and that the Chinese language of Confucius are ones where bound morphology is sparse or even non-existent. So there's no correlation. So it might be easy to think, because when we're taught grammar, that grammar is so often a matter of learning a whole bunch of endings in some language, or even being told about the endings in our own, that the endings are what grammar is, and that if you don't have that, then you don't have any grammar. But that's actually not the case. You can look at a language like Akha. Akha is spoken in Southeast Asia, in Burma being one of the countries that it's spoken in. And Akha is a highly analytic, that is, isolating language. And yet, it encodes all sorts of concepts which we don't even have to express in our mighty and sophisticated English. And so if you look at Akha, look at the words in bold. The first one, this ne, expresses that I did something that affected someone else. So if you sleep, presumably it's not affecting someone else directly. But if you're giving something to someone, well, then they are going to come out having been given that thing. Well, in Akha, you have to mark that with this morpheme. Then you have this second morpheme, ang, and that indicates that you are the person who was affected, and that happens to be used. And then you have this she here, and that is something which is used whenever you use a number. You use a number, and then you have to add this little bit of stuff, and that bit of stuff differs depending on what sort of thing you gave someone. If it was round, then you have to use a certain bit of stuff. If it had some other shape, different bit of stuff. If it was an animate being, then a different little bit of stuff. That's the sort of thing that we barely have in English. We just talk about one banana. We don't have to say one long thing banana. This is the sort of language where that happens. And then this fourth thing, this ma, just means that you're certain of what you said. So in English, we can say something like, well, you know, this is the rainiest day down here this year. I am sure of that. You could say that, but you don't have to say that. In Akha, as in many languages, you have to tack on something indicating that you're sure or that you're unsure, or that it's only something that you heard, etc. So there are all those things in this language where there would be no long tables of endings that will present to you or anything like that. In any case, I am showing you morphemes, and I'm trying to start from the familiar, and in this case, that means talking about endings and talking about prefixes. In other words, talking about affixes, prefixes, suffixes. But the fact is that a morpheme can be more than just a bit of stuff. And a morpheme can also combine with another morpheme to create a word without either of the morphemes being little bound morphemes. And so, for example, you can make a word from two morphemes by putting two free words together, and you create what's called a compound. And so, for example, black. that's one word. You would write it as one word, and it is one word. It refers to one thing. But of course, it comes from two other words, black and bird. Or steamboat would be the same thing. There's a rule in English that we use subconsciously when we create a compound. The accent is on the first syllable. So if you think about it, a black bird is some bird that's black, and presumably quite a few of them are. A blackbird is that particular type of bird that there's that old song about. Look, Mom, a black bird. It could be any number of things. Look, Mom, a blackbird. That's a very particular kind of blackbird. So, look, Mom, a black bird. Well, blackbird, that's two words. Look, Mom, a blackbird. Well, blackbird, that's one word. It's made from two, but now it's one. That's a compound. And the way that we know is because of that accent pattern. And this means that for one reason or another, the two concepts have come to be associated so much that there is now one unitary concept, such as the black bird. It's interesting. There is an early